Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Scott, and members of the Mayor and Council, and Madam Mayor. I'm here to talk to you tonight about Google Fibers for Community. Google Fiber for Communities is a RFI that was issued, request for information, that was issued by Google to gauge the level of interest of communities across the nation that would be interested in having fiber to the home in an experiment, essentially, with ultra-high-speed broadband, 1 gigabit per second, which is about 100 times faster than what's typically available in a residential household. They're looking for communities with 50,000 to 500,000 people. And it's a little unclear whether they're looking for population or number of subscribers, but there are other communities our size that are applying for this. They issued this RFI on February 10th. It's due on March 26th. Some of the benefits we see to this are more competition and choices for broadband access for residents and businesses, far superior broadband speeds than other communities. With more competition, competitors might be forced to lower prices. It could also spur an economic development as more businesses would want to locate in Rockville with access to ultra-high-speed broadband. It's not exactly clear with the RFI, though, whether they would offer the service to businesses, but one can assume they might, given that Verizon and others have. The education community could also benefit since we have several universities and colleges nearby. Information workers and high-tech workers and scientists would seek out this area to locate, given this access to such great internet service. And then and then also I would say teleworkers would also, we'd see an increase in that because residents would be able to run applications remotely that they couldn't previously do. Residents would also have access to the next generation applications that wouldn't be available to other communities. And the city would likely receive national recognition as being one of the most technologically advanced communities for internet access. And it might also possibly help with the city's branding efforts. There are some potential downsides to the project, too. Obviously, we've seen what's happened with Verizon and the scale. When you have a large construction project, it's going to lead to disruptions, and the construction activity will certainly generate complaints. It will require staff resources to manage and oversee the deployment and construction of it. By actively soliciting and encouraging the project, we also run the risk of weakening negotiation leverage we would have on other right-of-way agreements. We'd also potentially put ourselves in direct opposition with or conflict with some residents who may oppose this. And we also might create the appearance of approving the project before having all the facts and opportunity for input. The criteria Google has mentioned that they will use to select communities for this project, and we suspect there'll be hundreds of communities across the United States applying for this. Will be communities that are interested in deploying their network quickly and efficiently. And also, Google is looking for communities where they can bring benefits to residents through the development of useful proofs of concept, which could have a broader impact in the future. They're also looking at the level of community support. Google Fiber for Communities site provides a short response form for residents and community groups to show support for Rockville's application. Google also looks at local resources, weather conditions, approved construction methods, and regulatory issues. Google has also not mentioned whether they're intending to provide cable TV service. If they do, that invokes a whole set of regulatory issues that they would have to adhere to as well. The application is about 18 pages long. It will require some staff resources to complete. It's not an easy application. There's a lot of detail in it. So before we, as Scott mentioned earlier, before we embark on this endeavor, we wanted to gauge the Mayor and Council's level of support for going forward. We also would be interested in an effort where we would promote this to residents because one of the criteria is, like I mentioned earlier, to have the community support this, and we would probably need to do a little bit of a PR campaign to encourage residents to and community leaders to show support for this. It's a little 2-page application that they would fill out as well online. And like I mentioned earlier, it's due March 26th, and it would also be helpful to understand whether the mayor and council might be interested in extending a similar offer that we offered Verizon in terms of the deployment of the fiber citywide, since it's a larger scale project than than a typical right-of-way agreement where we would charge our standard permit fees. That might help our case a little when we submit our application. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, Mr. Cannon, you cited some downsides, but I just felt like they're really not that big. And that the upside of this is, in my opinion, would be incredible for Rockville. I was just reading in Scientific American a week or 2 weeks ago how 10 years ago the United States was at the forefront of broadband, and now there are countries that the typical installation is 20 to 30 times faster than the average, installation, broadband installation in the United States. And so I think Google's got it right. I think they're stirring the pot, purposely so, prodding the competition. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't extend the same deal we extended to Verizon. I don't see why we wouldn't go for this full force.
Anyone else? Yes.
Yes, thank you. I agree with the comments just made. And another question I have is, if this thing were to roll out, does Verizon now have the capacity in the system that it's installing, the fire system throughout the city, to increase to the same level of speed and capacity that Google would bring in?
I believe they would, but it would probably require swap out of the electronics that would be at the residents' consumer premises equipment would have to be probably upgraded.
But they wouldn't have to reline.
No,
Okay.
no, the fiber should absolutely
Fiber's
handle
fine.
that kind of bandwidth.
Yeah, I would be interested in pursuing.
Yes.
Madam Mayor, I think it sounds interesting. What are your anticipated staff costs? I mean, are we talking, considering how budget's such a big issue?
We wouldn't have any additional costs. We'd have a bigger workload here for a couple of weeks to complete the application in the planning department and the IT department and in our office. And we would take on that additional work to complete the application. We wouldn't be using any consulting services, I don't believe.
Right, and legal would also have
And legal
a
as
day or
well.
two of effort as well with us.
Peter, are you chiming in, or?
I'm happy listening. I've made my decision that I'm happy to endorse this.
So it's my chance.
And I can't even be heard, so yes, I will be endorsing this.
And I'd also add the county, and it looks like Gaithersburg, I learned today too, are also applying.
Oh, that's interesting. Would we be competing with Gaithersburg?
I'm not sure. I mean, they might select us holistically as a group since we're all located within the county. It's really unclear, except that I guess it would be a bigger market if they considered us all together.
I think it's tremendously exciting. I can't imagine a city better than Rockville to start with. We have everything going for us. We're biotech. We're highly educated. We're everything you could possibly want to get something like this on the road. I just wondered if you said something about we'd replicate or perhaps look at the Verizon agreement that we currently have. Are you seeing that as being you made some comment that perhaps we would lose our leverage, I think you said,
Well,
in
it would-
holding these guys' feet to the fire when they tear up our ground?
No, I think the agreement we reached with Verizon was with Verizon to pay the actual costs of conducting the inspections and all of the oversight and engineering review. And when you look at a scale project like this, if you applied our standard linear foot permit fees, it would be much higher than what Verizon pays as terms of actual costs.
Madam Mayor, what we learned in the Verizon instance is that our fee structure didn't work for large installations. That was intended for much smaller, maybe going across the street or down the street kind of installation. And so we're happy with what we negotiated with Verizon, and there's no reason why we wouldn't offer a similar arrangement with another provider.
Well, as you mentioned early on, I guess the is in the details. We don't know all the facts about this, but obviously when you go to the trouble of, what does he say, 36-page application or
18
something?
pages.
You're going to get a lot of details, and my guess is it's going to be very exciting. I think it'd be terrific if Rockville were on the cutting edge. I think that's fabulous. Go for it.
Thank you.
Do we need a motion?
That'd be appreciated.
All right. Someone want to give me a motion?
I move that we pursue the request for information.
Yes.
Right, the request for information from Google.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
All right, wonderful.